Understanding the city business process can be cumbersome for many, including me. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fervent 4. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? Hello, I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. With me today, I have my co-host, Tim Ryan, lead man at StartWheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent 4 is a weekly show each and every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights to growing a world-class business no matter the climate. Chris Tillet has been helping businesses grasp city codes for their business for a decade plus. He also heads up Tillet Advisors, which specializes in real estate development and government contracting. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
What's
it.
up, Chris?
Being here. How you doing?
I'm doing splendid. I would like to know if there is another word other than Tillet that has two double letters. So Tillet has a double L, double T. What's another word that has multiple double letters in it like that?
Oh, that's a good question. Montessori, Mississippi.
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah, that was the one I was thinking.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was two T's in your last name. I've known you for quite some time until today. I always thought it was Tillet instead of Tillet.
It's actually three T's, Zach.
Three T's.
Oh, money. Starts with a T, my bro.
I have failed you all.
Yep, no, it's everybody always forgets that T. Everybody always forgets the T on the end. Two T's.
Interesting. So does that become an issue because you have you have a very common first name, not common last name? How do you, I think this is actually, like, no, joking aside, I think this is a bigger probably problem than people probably give it credit for. How do you handle a name that is difficult for someone to spell in the world where everything is done by typing or saying something out loud, where they have to actually like type Tillet?
It used to bother me a little bit more, but over the years, since I'm used to people forgetting that last T, it doesn't really bother me. But sometimes I'll go to the whole military lingo when I Tillet, T is in tango, and so on and so forth, and two L's, two T's. But yeah,
Oh, so you'll say that in it, like two L's, two T's?
Yeah, so I'll be like, it's Tillet, T is in tango, ILLETT, two L's, two T's.
Were you in the military?
No, sir, I was not, but I have come up with lots of different T's and Tom, and sometimes people hard it. So I'm like, you know what? I guess maybe the military, they do it for a reason. So let's roll with that.
Interesting. So for me, obviously, a lot of people spell my name Zach, and I'm like, it's not Zach. And so I'll say things like that. Obviously, from an email perspective, we just have ghost or alias accounts where, if someone does type my name wrong, it will come to me, but I'll see that they spell my name wrong. So with something like TilletAdvisors.com, did you also buy Tillet1T.com just so that if people messed up?
I did not. That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because
Google does that.
Yeah.
Every way that you can spell Google, they own it, and it auto directs to Google.
Oh, that's smart. Because Tim, do you ever have an issue with this, Tim? You have a very common. You do.
Well, yeah, people call me Ryan all the time. Spell check will change Tim to Time. But it all comes down to, at least for me, especially, it's just attention to detail. And it's like, how much do you really care about the person that you're talking to or meeting for the first time? And nobody likes it when you mess up their name.
Well, I'll stop texting you then, Tim, because I know that one word per text to you is always messed up. But my phone autocorrects to the weirdest things.
Oh, yeah.
And
but when you have a relationship with somebody, that's one thing. But when you're reaching out for the first time, or you're not bros, then that's a whole different story.
Interesting. So we're kind of on the topic of just like name, brand, things like that. Something I think you really have done a grand job at, Chris, over the years is just establishing and continuing a network. I met you through one of my favorite people in the entire world, Larry Lombardi, who's the economic development down in Currituck, North Carolina. And he just, if I remember, he just brought you by one day. And then what's interesting, he brought you by Hatch like one random day in like 2013 or something. But then you kind of reciprocated that a couple years later and brought one of my other favorite people in the world, Desmond Varner, in with you, which was really interesting. And so just generally, how do you build a network? How do you figure out like who is valuable to spend more time with and kind of just generally around that topic?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And, to start off, everybody's value, everybody has some sort of, contribution they can put in the game. So again, relationships to me are the biggest thing in pretty much any industry. You can get one deal or sell one product, but if people don't like you, you're one and done. So, I mean, the relationships, as I've always said, whether it was in the city or, real estate or consulting or restaurants, whatever it is, people need to like you. People want to buy things from people that they like. If they don't like you and you've got a good product, yeah, like I said, you might get one deal, one sale, but people want to continue to do business with people that they like. So, again, I've always focused on treating everybody like they've got value. It's kind of the old thing that your parents would say, treat people like you want to be treated. I mean, that's huge. Customer service even is just, in my opinion, it's kind of trash these days. Nobody's got time for anybody or anything. And, again, I keep going back to the same thing. People want to do business with people that they like. So like I said, everybody's got value in some shape or form. It's just finding that and rolling with it. And I don't like to use the, go ahead.
Did you say customer service isn't valued? What did you say that? What did you
say?
No,
I said customer service these days is kind of trash. Anywhere you go, people are not quick to necessarily help the customer. They don't have time, or, you're interrupting their day and they've got things to do. And
it's one way or the other, right? There's no middle room anymore. Like it's either the worst in the world or the most amazing service ever.
100%. 100%. And go ahead.
Which is unsettling, but it's also an opportunity, I think, where that can be the thing that sets you apart. And I tell people all the time, it's just like, hey, like if you just are awesome at customer service, that might be the thing that gets you continuing that repeat business that you were talking about.
100%. I mean, like when I was in the city, a lot of my job was helping new businesses get started, as you mentioned in the beginning, kind of city process stuff. But as I was evaluating the person in the business, if I found out, I worked for the city of Norfolk, but if Virginia Beach made the most sense for them to go, I helped them get into Virginia Beach. I made calls. I followed up with them because at the end of the day, when they want to open up shops 2, 3, and 4, they're going to think of me because I helped them, knowing that I wasn't getting anything in return. It's the long game. Everything we do is the long game, not the short game.
Yeah. How did that work with the people that you work for?
So I think off the cuff at first. Let me backtrack a little bit. So most of the people in economic development in the department got where I was going because our job, essentially, even though we stand alone on cities, it's a regional thing. Economic development is regional. At the end of the day, people got to go through Norfolk to get to Virginia Beach. And when they're leaving Virginia Beach, they're driving through Norfolk and Chesapeake and all these others. So, depending on the deal, it would get looked at one way or another. Again, the economic development folks kind of understood because business retention is generally where most of the employment counts come from and growth, so numbers go anywhere from 80 to 95% of new job creation comes from existing businesses, not brand new. So they understood that fostering that relationship and getting them somewhere else is part of business retention. Now, again, if I'll use the whole brewery, because a couple of years ago, Stone Brewery's come in and, if I went out on a limb and I set them up in Virginia Beach, they would definitely get mad at me, with something like that. But over time, I think they realized as other people such as Hatch and you, Tim, with what you guys do and the whole, accelerating and growing businesses, that it's a regional play. What's good for somebody is good for somebody else. At first, it would get looked at a little weird, but then as you explain things and mention that, again, we're relationships, we're long game, I think that they started to grasp that idea,
I don't think I've ever.
That's a good question.
I don't think I've ever told this story, but it's definitely on that topic. So I was in between Hatch cohorts 2 and 3, raising a fund, and I was pitching to the old Colonial boys. Right, I'm getting real specific in here, which includes Mayor Paul Frame. Okay, I mean, if they get mad at me for saying this, then I don't really care. It would be ridiculous if they did. But they have a fund called the Old Colonial Boys or something like that, where they invest in companies. Yes, him and about 20 other guys. Right. Maybe that's the wrong name, but or maybe it's like the Old Granby guys or something like that.
Old Granby guys, good old boy.
Like Old Colonial Avenue or something like that. It's something to tied with that. Old Wow Boy. I don't remember what the name was, right? But Mayor Frame was one of them. And at this talk, he did not invest in Hatch because he felt that it was, from a political perspective, it would be bad that the city was helping Hatch, and it would be bad if he invested individually, regardless. So I had mentioned kind of the same thing that you're talking about, Tim, where Virginia Beach had been trying to get us to open a location at Town Center. And what's interesting is he took that, immediately called the city manager at the time, who I was very close with, Marcus Jones. And Marcus Jones, city manager, Paul Frame, and I can't remember who was at City of Virginia Beach this time. This is like would have been March, April 2013 timeframe. They were ticked at each other, going at it. Like, you can't steal him. You can't call that. This is our thing. Yada, yada, yada. And I remember Bryant Thomas, who I'm sure you know, Chris. Tim, you might know.
Yeah. Love that guy.
Bryant Thomas calls me and goes, "What did you say to my boss? He is fired up," and all this. And I was just like, I think it's always good to raise your hand and figure out everything else later, right? The way I got a TV show, I raised my hand saying I wanted it, figure it out later, right? Figure out the specifics later. If someone says, "Hey, we would be interested in you maybe opening an office here," yeah, let's talk about this. What can you offer me? They were looking at there was a gym, I think, at Town Center that had closed. Maybe we would go there. Obviously, we never moved there. I can't remember why. Maybe because the little battle that we got into. But what's interesting is, like, that's a legit thing where people get super ticked off at. And I'm just like, who cares? I've always thought, who cares? Right? Like, it's such a silly thing. The infighting is silly. Like, if I want to expand another business, if I'm Taco Bell and I want one on Battlefield and I want one in Granby Street and I want one on Virginia Beach Boulevard, that's up to me, the business owner. These cities getting mad at each other so silly. It's like, well, Dirty Buffalo, right? Now they have a 4th location, 2 in Norfolk, 1 in Virginia Beach, one in Grassfield about to open. It's just like, let that business expand instead of you guys fighting for such stupid reasons, other than me just being like, "Hey, we had a conversation."
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, man, business is like the most competitive sport out there. But then at the same time, the thing that's in competition is a really good thing. I mean, our iron sharpens iron, but yet from another point of view, where you were going with Zach, is like, no, we need to eliminate competition so that, we can continue doing what we've been doing over and over. I've
never fact checked this, so it could be fake news. I have no idea. But I've always been told that when McDonald's moves into a street, Burger King doesn't do any kind of competitive analysis. They just go across the street because they know that it's going to be good for business, because a lot of these streets are fast food. Same with restaurant. Because the density of that builds up, right? And so
Home Depot and Lowe's.
Oh God, yeah.
I got a local example that you guys may remember. The old Starbucks Stella Cafe issue on Colonial Avenue. That was a huge deal.
So Stella is a very local bit.
Very local. And what it boiled down to, and I don't remember the exact numbers, a lot of the, I wasn't on that specific deal, but I know some of my colleagues at the time were, and the numbers basically said that if a Starbucks locates within a certain radius of local coffee shops, the local coffee shop revenue skyrockets. I mean, you have two different, generally, not always,
and there was
types of clientele, right?
Across the street, basically, anyway, in that situation. So I never understood why. Maybe not across the street, maybe a block and a half down the road, and then a block and a half the other way too. So they close the other two and just have that one.
Yeah. So the only one left is that one across the street now. They moved out of the one that was on Collie. There's some other local cafe, but I mean, even if you look historically, I mean, going back hundreds and thousands of years in the market, all the fish people were by side, all the carpet people were in one area, all the meat people were in another area, you know, spices. I mean, that's just how things have always been. People, grocery stores are always, you know, Rite Aid, 7-Eleven, that's the name of the game, my man.
So it's interesting. I'm going to use this here. Tim, you were talking about competitive sports, right? Like if I was in football, I would want to beat. It's like the Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man. I don't want to beat the. Woo! I don't want to beat that person when they are not good anymore. I want to meet them at. I want to beat them at the top.
At the peak,
right?
yeah.
Right. So, like, if I ever got fast enough to beat you in a race, Tim, you better damn well still be fast. I don't want to beat you because you're injured or you're 90 years old or anything like that. Like, I want to beat you on top. So there's 3 guys that are doing this triathlon with me. And the guy who won last year, I basically told him, I was like, don't you dare slow down because I want to beat you on the top. I don't want you to have a down year because I'm not. And people think
competition's healthy, man.
But it's like, I've always been like that. Like, yes, I would love to win, but there is nothing worse than losing to someone who basically didn't show up.
Right. It's a race to the bottom at that point. And the 3 you guys right now are all friendly, and it's a friendly competition, but it's still a competition, and you're all 3 of you are elevating your game as a result.
That's so true too, because I remember going into the race, I was like, I will hope that I could go about 6:15 total, right? For all 3 of the stuff. And then when Jay Proc, who ended up winning the race, was like, oh, these are my times. This is what I think I'm going to do. I was like, well, we're going to have to go a lot faster than that. And I went about 34 minutes faster than that. I went 5:40, I think, 5:41, something like that. But him, just like you're talking about, Tim, he elevated us up there. And so that competition's good. And it probably means that you're going to get people who, not only from a restaurant perspective, but from the startup community perspective, a lot of people have always talked about, myself included, is the density is so necessary of these businesses, because what happens if that one closes? You recruit, someone to get here. Well, what happens if that business closes? Where are they going to go work after that? Well, there's no place to work. Well, then they're going to move. And so you have to have that density of.
And you get better products. You know, if somebody's trying to beat you, I mean, everybody's always refining. So at the end of the day, the competition oftentimes breeds better innovation.
So Chris, you went to ODU?
Yes, sir, I did.
And then, so you went to ODU, and then did you decide to stay here in Norfolk?
Yeah, so I, like some people do, I followed a girlfriend down here out of high school. We are no longer, both my parents are from here, so it was an easy transition. You know, I've been coming here my whole life, but yeah, I went to ODU, 5 years, you know, kind of like 7 years school to college. I would have pulled out 7 if I could have. But yeah, I graduated in the 08-09 time frame, which kind of went world.
I heard.
What's that?
Van Wilder Tillet.
You know it. Finding a job, as a lot of people know, if they were in that boat in the 08-09 time frame, was extremely rough. So I ended up started working at a fine dining establishment in downtown Norfolk and was doing very well, paying all the bills, but then kind of realized, hey, I've got a college education, a degree. Nothing wrong with working in restaurants, but if I twist an ankle or, you know, the restaurant burns down or there's a pandemic, I'm not making any money. So I ended up getting an internship in the city of Norfolk I was probably 25 years old. I'm interning with 17 and 18-year-olds that are still in high school. But, you know, the world was tough then. But yeah, went to ODU, stuck around and been around since. I love this area. Hampton Roads is super solid. proximity to, obviously, to the ocean, and then you can get to the mountains in a couple of hours. So, I mean, I love this area.
Yeah, I was just, I guess the whole premise of my question was going back to what we were talking about with when you're at ODU, did you establish that network, or maybe you saw this as a target-rich environment from a competition standpoint that you're like, hey, I'm going to stay here and take over the region?
Honestly, that thought, none of that ever crossed my mind one bit. So I was the guy in college and high school that, you know, I showed up, you know, the whole C's get degrees resonated with me. Sadly, you know, I was the kind of guy that I could go in and take tests and do all of that and get A's and go through, but you know, the homework and everything else. So I'll tell you, I surfed and partied most of my way through college. And so that I was not in that mindset at the time, to do any of that. And, you know, I always say I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time.
Have you ever met someone who is, though, in the right position for that? Because I haven't. I mean,
no. I mean, I wanted to go to, you know, I didn't even know if I wanted to go to college. It was one of those, when I got out of high school, it was kind of like, I was thinking about maybe community college, you know, because I wasn't sure. My dad was like, well, they did the Virginia 529 saving college thing. And so my dad was, you know, they had paid for the college, and he was like, all right, well, this is what's going to happen. You can either move out and do whatever the hell you want to do, pay your own bills, or you can go to college, which is already paid for. And so I was like, well, you know, I don't think I would make nearly enough money out of high school to be able to pay for myself, and college is paid for. So that's where I went. And you know, I still don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I can damn sure tell you that when I was 21 years old in college, you know, what I was going to be doing at 40 never crossed my mind.
But you know what? You're out there being social, and look at the social skills you have now to build the network that you have to what it is today.
And a lot of people that I've met, you know, so it's funny, like I'm now a real estate agent here at Crescus Real Estate, and one of the girls that's in the office with me all the time, we used to hang out. I mean, like, she was in the same friend group in college. So it's a very small town. And, you know, this is segued off, but burning bridges is not something one should ever do. It goes back to relationships, man. You'll never know when you might need somebody 10 years down the road.
That's what I tell everybody here. I'm like, this place, this region is the largest small town that you'll ever live in.
Facts.
I've only burned one bridge.
Well, look, if you're going to burn it, blow it up, right? So, you know, sometimes that happens.
I probably didn't even burn that bridge because I don't think that person even cares. But
and at the end of the day, there are crappy people out there, right? You know,
I would refer to that person as.
It is what it is, you know, and it's hard to be, you know, copacetic and friendly with everybody, but it's just, you know, case by case, deal by deal. You need to just kind of figure that out. And like I said, if you're going to do something, do it right first, all the way.
What'd you learn about
anything?
What'd you learn about business and life and kind of your career from working at the restaurant?
I loved working at the restaurant, and if I ever won the lottery, I'd go straight back to Bird and Baldwin and work there again. I mean, it just. So obviously you do get a taste for the finer things, you know, because, you know, you're serving steaks and high dollar wine. So I definitely got a good feel for that. But I mean, I keep hitting on the same thing, that relationships are the most important. You know, it's one of those that when you're in there, oftentimes, and I'm going to get on a little touchy subject, but people judge people by their appearance, right? You know, you see somebody, and I used a lot of the old guys in the restaurant, they'd see somebody kind of come in and maybe looking a little bit sloppy, shirt wasn't tucked in, and, you know, they wouldn't give them any, you know, they got to give them service, but you're not getting that A1, what you're paying, you know, $60 for a steak for, right? So I always kind of had and, you know, that's kind of what my parents always told me. I mean, you never judge anybody by the way they look, and you have no idea where people come from. And a perfect example is I had a couple come in, they split everything. I think their total bill was like $90 for two people, which is super, super low and almost impossible to do. But I pulled out all of the stops for these people because it was, you know, not something that they normally did. It was a special occasion. I wanted to make them feel special. Well, The wife of the couple, her brother, he was a blind priest that is up at William and Mary. He also owns, with some partners, some scallop fishing boats. And because I showed the sisters such a good time, they came in and became my regular call party, and they would pay my rent every time they come in. I mean, I would walk off there with $500, $600, $700 off that table, and it was all because I showed his sisters such a good time and didn't judge them based on the fact that they were splitting everything and didn't have a bill. And again, it goes back to, the richest person in the room could be in basketball shorts and a flannel. You have no idea. So that was one of the things I learned there real quick, was you never, never, never judge anybody by the way that they look. So to me, that was one of the big things that I took away from that.
Are you stuck at your home office, socially distanced coffee shop, or your fancy all bricked out corner office, wondering why no one can see your business and sales are all over the place? Sounds like you need a pro. That's why I developed the Anomaly Academy. Insert clever copy here. Oh, I guess I was supposed to put something else there. Oops. You can grab access to the Anomaly Academy now at zachmillersays.com/Anomaly Academy.
Yeah, that's one thing that I just finished reading Creativity Inc. It was a founder of Pixar. And the last chapter was cool. He talked about his relationship with Steve Jobs. And that was one of the things that was interesting. I mean, Steve Jobs made most of his money with the sale of Pixar to Disney. But one of the things that he noticed about Steve was he had 2 holes in the bottom of his jeans on both legs. And he couldn't, for the longest time, he couldn't figure it out. What that was from, until there was one meeting that Steve had been wearing the same pair of jeans for so long, every single day, that from him scratching his ankle or rubbing his ankle, he wore 2 holes in his jeans. And yeah, I mean, it's just little things like that. You just never can judge, anybody for that.
I don't understand why at this point people still do that, though, right? Especially with tech out there. I mean, it's just so
do
odd.
What? Judge people or not buy jeans?
Well, the judging of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
it's 2021. Let's get real,
Well, it's just like, is it a jealousy thing? Like, I don't like. I've never understood. Obviously, I'm a guy who basically wears the same thing every day, right? Jeans, or like recently just gym shorts and and a black t-shirt. But like, I don't understand why that's such a big issue, right? And I always remember the people who were like, "Oh, you should dress to success." Those were the people who like really weren't doing that well in business either, or like in general, right? So it's just like, why are you giving that kind of thought towards someone when you can't?
That goes to Chris's point is, not only do you want to treat someone the way that you want to be treated, but the same token, people never forget how you treated them. And so you want to treat everybody. Yeah.
100%.
Early guest of the show, friend of the show, and someone you probably haven't heard his name of in a long time, Chris Tillet, another Chris. Chris Tillet had a similar situation. A couple, former owner of Three Way Cafe, great little spot. He had a similar situation. A couple shared everything. ... 4 dots. That must be for the 4-point loss from Alabama last night in basketball. Oh, burn! I think it was more than 4 points. Though. Turns out the couple came in to stake out the place for an interview. This guy is going to be so mad at me for saying that about Alabama. Turns out the couple came in to stake out the place for an interview. The wife had 2 weeks later. She came back for the interview, requested me, got a $600 tip from, I don't know what that is. I'm not saying that. I'm done. But whatever.
It's a family-friendly show.
Yeah. But see, wow, Zach Miller can hold back. I never thought that was a possibility. But
yeah, I mean, I'm convinced someday. I always want to stay on the right side of karma. Someday, and you too, Zach, you may show up on a cap table somewhere that once a company goes public, that they threw you a bone here or there. You never know.
That would be nice. Interesting. Okay, so Chris, you have a lot of hats these days, and it sounds like you've kind of always had a lot of hats. How do you just live life while, and it's not necessarily the gig economy, which is having a lot of kind of jobs, but let's just say it's similar to the gig economy where you have kind of a lot of transactions coming in from a lot of different means. Being told for so long that the way to do it is to go work this one job and work it up that way, and yet you're doing kind of the opposite, where it's like you have several different money-making opportunities. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's hard to describe to people? Is that something that you think hurts your brand because you don't know which one to tell that person at the right time? How do you handle those situations?
That's a very good question. And
I'm the best interviewer in the world. Self-acclaimed.
Yeah, it's difficult. So, I mean, you're right. Growing up, it's always that, you go work here and you do this forever and ever. And, my wife's dad is the perfect example, started at the Ford plant when he was 17 on the line, and that's where he retired. And, when I mentioned that I was thinking about getting out of the cities, oh, you're going to go away from the benefits and this, and it's definitely an older mentality. I think, some of the numbers that I'd seen years ago was, people of the baby boomer age probably have 3 jobs max in their lifetime. And that's generally, from 30s on, not stuff that they had in high school. And then people of our generation go from anywhere from 4 to 12 jobs in a lifetime. And, some of them say that it's just the impatient, gotta have now mentality of the millennials and the younger people. But I think that it has a lot to do with kind of what people enjoy and doing in life. And, the world is much different than it was in 1975, with just property rates. And, I could get on a whole nother segue about what pensions did and how the standard didn't raise. And, but to kind of circle back, it can be, sometimes I do find it a little difficult to try to figure out what angle to come in. So, essentially I have the government process and real estate development consulting plan, which does everything from, city processes like building permits, site planning, land use, access to capital, special like enterprise zone grant stuff. So it's all about also knowing your audience and kind of who you're talking to. And really the thing that I do the most is just, I ask a bunch of different questions, to try to figure out where, because again, with real estate, single family or commercial, and the whole development process, and that even entails getting, lottery licenses and tobacco licenses for businesses. It's really what it boils down to is trying to figure out what type of person am I talking to? What is their goal? When I'm just standing up and broadly talking about myself to, the public, as a whole, and I'm not engaging one particular person or one particular topic, I do find myself kind of segueing in a bunch of different areas. And also my ADHD brain, I can start talking about license plates and dogs, 3 minutes later. So, I do find it can be difficult, but generally based on the real estate and the government process side, a lot of it overlaps and aligns itself. So we can start talking about one thing or another. A perfect example would be one of the guys I used to work with in planning, Matt Simons. He's got a cousin that owns a manufacturing business at Portsmouth. They were originally calling me about enterprise zone information. And as I started digging and asking questions, I might now be helping them get SWAM certified, register with Virginia, and just it's really, like I said, it can be tough trying to hone in, but I find that just asking a million questions and them asking me a million questions is the easiest way to go. And whenever you leave, you always think of, 15 more. So just again, it goes back to being open, text me, call me whenever. It goes back to that relationship thing. People want to feel valued and want to do business with people that they like.
Yeah. So on the flip side, do you ever find yourself in a position where localities are contacting you to find out where they need to position themselves based on the needs of the business owners or the businesses trying to establish themselves?
So I haven't yet, and the consulting thing is new-ish. It's not been, obviously I did it for the city of Norfolk for 7+ years. So I am not getting, the big wigs to give me the call yet. But I mean, I do have, through just as people start, associating Chris with not being in the city and doing these other things, I am having bigger companies kind of call on me to help. I would love to get in with some of the localities as well. And that ends up going on to me and doing my own marketing and making those relationships. I do have a lot of relationships still with people in all the different cities, but I haven't gotten that yet. And mostly it's, somebody that I may have come across in the past is talking to somebody, oh, you need to do that. And somebody's like, oh, you need to call Chris Tillet. And that's just what happened with the Matt Simon thing. Is I said, well, what do you know about enterprise? She's like, I got this guy you need to talk to. And, Matt didn't even really know that I was doing necessarily the consulting stuff on the side, but knew that I used to run the enterprise zone with the city of Norfolk and said, hey, call this guy. So it goes back to treating people like they, matter. And hopefully, you live your life in that it'll come back to you tenfold.
I've been directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, StartWheel eliminates that pain point because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.
So with that, we'll say that Zack is the big dog. He's the king for the day, and he wants to know from you. Chris, you've got your boots on the ground. You're talking to people every day. We want to position ourselves for the future. What is the one thing that we need to focus on in order to prepare ourselves for the next wave of business coming to our area?
So that's a solid question. And to me, that's when I would start asking other questions to be, when it comes down, one of the most important things to me for people with a business is kind of, so if you're a one-man show, it's one thing, but if you've got employees, right? To me, the employees are the big focus. They are the ones that make or break you. They're the ones out there that are selling your company to the outside world. So if you have employees, and I've worked for people that have never had a boss before, and it's very difficult, and you can definitely tell when nobody's had to work for somebody else. Richard Branson, I think, is the one that has said this, or at least I've seen it somewhere. You want to train your employees well enough so that they can leave, but treat them good or well enough so they don't. So if you have employees, my thing is highly focus on your employees, because they're the outside connection. If you're a one-person show, or even just a few in the office, positioning yourself to just, a lot of it comes to branding. You want to, when you think of, whatever the widget or the service that you provide, they're like, oh, you need to call Zack. That's the guy, So for, I'm looking for, the best jean jacket I can get, well, man, Zack's always in a damn good jean jacket. He's always looking fly. Let me talk to Zack. He's going to know where I can get a good jean jacket. So it's just kind of, and I know both of you all have said this before, and positioning yourself as not always the expert, but you want to know what you're talking about. So I think positioning yourself with sort of brand recognition, if it makes sense, kind of going back to the old retail thing where they associate whatever it is with Zack.
I mean, the thing that I find so, I think the answer is right there in front of us. That all the time we see in the headlines that, millennials are not moving here. There was just an article I read this morning about the top 25 places that people move to when they're 25, when they leave Hampton Roads. And but at the same time, we're not willing to change our zoning laws or whatever. I mean, it's like we're still arguing about Airbnbs and what
Yep.
level that's acceptable, Ubers and Lyfts, and all these types of things. I mean, so we're not positioning ourselves to attract the things that we say that we want to. I mean, and it's just, but
I'm with you. It's tough, and that was one of the things again when I was in the city was it's always so Raleigh, Charlotte, Durham, the research triangle down there, and tech companies and startups and all that, and well we need to increase our area and do this, that, and the other, and you're always looking for the next best thing. City manager or council person travels to Vegas and they're like, oh, they have a container park, we need to do that here. And then when your staff puts together great deals and plans and ideas, and they're like, no, that's not
But
you know what
I mean, those situations aren't done by cities, in my opinion, right? They're done by individuals who run businesses, and cities just want to copy them. And they're like, how do we do that? And I think that's the big challenge of an area like ours is they see something else, right? Forever it was, we want to be the next Silicon Valley. Well, it doesn't seem like Silicon Valley is a thing that people copy anymore, right? It seems like Austin is that place that everyone wants to copy now because that's the cool new place, right? What made Austin? A lot of things by a lot of different people. And yes, I think the government might play a role in that, but you also just got to get out of the way. Right. And so
the government can't get
the narrative is so the narrative is all like, I tell people this all the time and I don't know why they blackball me. I'm like, stop talking about the infighting. It's such an unnecessary conversation to bring up. Like, you'll see something that's a very positive post and maybe even in a non-local media publication. And the quote will be something along the lines of, oh, well, normally these cities that are next to each other don't work together. Well, why are you broadcasting that message? It's so unnecessary. The narrative is so wrong. And it brings us back to, I think, some of the things that we were talking about here. It's like, what are the words that you want people to associate with you? Make sure that's basically the things that you talk about over and over and over again in that vernacular, so that when the game of telephone gets back to you or to that person that you want them to, they can think of, oh, Chris Tillet is associated with this word. Zack is associated with jean jacket, marketing, beards, whatever,
I'm with you. And I think you hit it. Let the businesses that are in town kind of help you. And quick example would be, Nisha Witt with the solar charging bench, right? I helped her get that, and, solid idea, hugely needed. I saw the need there. I made the connection with the city because two things were going to happen, right? Either A, she's going to get in, it's going to go off, or the city manager, council person, somebody downtown North Council is going to go look at some other city and see it. Then we're going to contract some multi-million-dollar company who's in Texas to do this for us, where we've got an idea, we've got a person who is local, all of these things, and deploy it. And then when that thing's being big and explodes, you now have somebody who was local that can spread that message, and then even talk about how awesome the city was that they did this, they gave her the supplies for free, and this, that, and the other. And you hit it, Zach. You got to let the businesses be your word, champions, and do it for you. Again, it goes back to kind of what we were going to be saying before we got on the line. Government mixing with certain things is just not good. Hey, I'm with the government, I'm here to help.
But then that narrative gets out into other people. And that's the narrative. Like when I first started getting into in this style of business stuff, that was the narrative that was told to me. And so then I started saying that because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And so I was like, oh yeah, well, like blah, 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 infighting. And I'm just like, then I realized, hold on, this is stupid. Like, why am I talking about this?
Right.
Like, this isn't fixing anything. Like,
and the government, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to sit here and crap all over the government because they did get me to where I am. And, my dad did 30 years public service, and, it's just, they do have the underlying want to help, right?
100%.
But like we said, they can't get out of their own way.
Yes.
That's just what it boils down to.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to this: be what you are, not someone else, right? Stop looking at other cities and saying, oh, I wish we could do that. well, do you own that business? Does that style of person live here? Then what can we be doing to enhance that person's portfolio to make that thing happen, to have that thing want to happen? And the closest thing that I can think of anyone that's been doing something like that is what Pharrell's done in the last few years. Right. And who knows if he, like, I don't know him. I don't know. I mean, I know the things that he's done, but who knows if there's been not red flags. What's it called? Like caution tape, red tape put up for him and stuff like that. You know, I would hope not, but it's just like, just get out of the way, make things easy. Because I remember one time Marcus Jones, who's now the city manager at Charlotte, said, hey, we want to be the best place to start a business in the world. And he's like, how can we do that, Zach? And I said, have the easiest process to get a business license in the world. That was my response to him. He goes, huh. And I was like, it's that simple, dude. Like, if you want things to be the best and like make things easy.
Oh, yeah. And
that's it.
Like I said, and Tim said it, zoning, you know, relax the zoning. It gets tough. That was my world for so long. And I found myself just beating my head against the wall and being like, God, I said it again. We can't get out of our own damn way.
What we've asked this question in the past, and I'm curious what your take is. So I'm sure you have a lot of people that contact you from out of the area that are considering moving here, starting a business here, relocating their business here. While they're talking to you, and someone says, "Hey, what is Hampton Roads known for? What is the one thing that while you're here, you've got to do this, you have to try this, you have to eat at this restaurant." How do you respond to that?
So I'm kind of nerdy. You know, I majored in history in college. And what do we have here? A ton of history. So I honestly like to talk a little bit about that. I mean, you know, everybody throws out, we got the largest military base, Navy base in the world. And, you know, we've got the ocean and, you know, I love to surf and do all of those things. So it's, you know, what I like about this area is, you know, specifically in Norfolk, we have such a walkable downtown. Like even Richmond, I'm from Richmond, downtown Richmond's nice, but I feel like, you know, I can get from one end of Norfolk to the other in a 15-minute walk. You know, I feel like I go 4 blocks.
Downtown.
Yeah, downtown proper, financial district. And, you know, I love the ability. It kind of is, you have a real city feel, but like we were saying before, this area is the biggest, smallest, you know, and so I like to talk about that, you know, obviously the ocean, our proximity to, you know, like I said before, you know, I snowboard, ski, all that, you know, you can be in a mountain in 3 hours.
But those aren't things that people talk about, right? Like we don't celebrate the military the way, like we don't have, I feel like we don't celebrate the actual ocean of Virginia Beach and the waterways, right? The shipyard, right? I feel like we don't celebrate that. We don't champion that. And then from a military perspective, other cities that have a less military presence have bigger celebrations for their military, right? Like what's the why isn't Fleet Week in Norfolk? Right? Yeah. Just little things like that, you know, look, I'm not saying bring Fleet Week here, but something like, why don't we have a huge Veterans Day parade? Why don't we have the world's largest, right? We have the world's largest Navy base. So like little things like that, when you say these are, because historically people have said military, tourism, ports, right? And maybe tourism is pushed and is marketed a little bit better and championed over the last few years. But I feel like the other two, at least from an internal perspective, are not pushed the way that I think could be celebrated and championed. And I think the example that I gave with something like a Fleet Week, a Veterans Day, maybe even a Memorial Day parade, things like that. Like, why aren't those bigger for something that is such a big thing here? What's the biggest military thing outside of the base? The Wisconsin? And that really isn't celebrated, right? And
so the museum, the flight museum and all of that. And the other thing that I like to push a lot is, okay, you can live in a beach community, you can live in the middle of the country, you can live in the suburbs, or you can live in the city, all within a 15-minute drive.
Which is
you can have your pick.
Yeah.
Sir?
No, I think that's awesome. And these are all things that people need to hear, and we need to celebrate that, especially when you look at, I would love to know what the data says in terms of, out of the number of people that transition from military life to civilian life, how many of them stay and how many of them leave? I'm sure that probably 90% leave.
What's that word?
There are numbers.
Is the word transient? Is that like that's the word that a lot of people use? Is that
we are a
area
transient community. Even ODU, I don't know now, but when I was in school, it was a commuter school. Huge online presence. But yeah, it's Tim. Those numbers are out there, and it's largely they leave.
Yeah, because they leave. To Zach's point, where if again, people don't forget how you make them feel, and if they felt like this was a place that is home, I mean, these are some of the most highly skilled, trusted, professional people out there. I mean, they are
100%.
And we're letting them leave. Right, they're slipping right through our fingers, and it's really too bad.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question. A couple of thoughts on this. Okay, so what is the food of this region? I've asked this question. I've asked this question like on my Facebook, and historically I get the same answer. So I'm going to say it in a minute, but I want to hear what you guys is first.
So my opinion is you got a melting pot of food. So of course, Southern. You got it. I don't think we're largely Southern.
That's the whole thing. How do we identify this region? We have buffalo wings.
Well, it's not buffalo.
I'd say default fried, biscuits, gravy, collards,
Okay, so Chris says it's a melting pot, blah, blah, blah. What do you think, Tim?
Well, we've talked about this on a previous show. And the only thing that we can come up with was the white sauce from Plaza Azteca.
Yeah, the white Mexican sauce is what people can. Maybe that's okay. I forgot that we had talked about that. But that's what people always say: the white sauce, the Mexican ranch, whatever it is.
That is funny.
We go to Michigan to see my wife's family. We always bring that. That's what we bring.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, because I love it.
Okay, so Chris Hill says crab cake, she crab. I don't know. I don't feel like I feel
Baltimore. I think.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Baltimore has taken over the crabs that they actually take from our Chesapeake Bay, which is funny, and then they've marketed that better. So I don't think it. I think
maybe the beach could do that, or like East Beach has a lot of that just because of the feel of the water. But you go to Suffolk, it's burgers and beer. Obviously, they still do.
It could be craft beer, but I don't feel like. I think everywhere is craft beer.
I think Asheville has done a really good job of marketing themselves.
They have UNC Asheville has their own kind of brewery school now.
District, right? Oh, and then and the density of craft breweries there.
Another thing that's interesting from the word transient and how that people talk about this area as being so transient. Washington, D.C. is far more transient than our area, yet they don't have these problems, quote unquote, that we talk about a lot. And so I'm just going to put that out there for people to be thinking about that D.C. is far more transient from a percentage perspective than here, yet
D.C. was the number one destination of people that leave Hampton Roads.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I think anything within the 3-4 hour area, is probably where most people leave out when they leave school or out of high school, college to go somewhere else. I feel like most people don't go so far away.
Sure.
I don't know that for a fact, but that would be my guess. If I was to look at the 350 people that I graduated with, I would think that 80% of them and less. Up to 80% of them would live still in the Northern Virginia area or within a 3.5-4 hour kind of radius. Because
I'd say that's fair.
Family, you don't want to live so far away. I mean, one of the reasons why I didn't end up moving as far away after college was, it would be hard for my family to visit me. And then COVID hit 20 years later and, whatever. But.
Right.
Because we have two airports to go to.
Wants, needs.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now that also single, you're getting here on the human services side of that, but divorce and single parents and this, that, and the other, it's much different than when our parents were doing. Kind of goes back to that, get the one job, it's got you the benefits and you're secure, and that's just not necessarily the way of the world anymore. At least that's my belief and opinion. Everybody's got one, right?
The Fervent 4 is powered by the Small Business Development Center, which helps local small businesses grow through counseling. If you're interested in learning more on how the SBDC can help your business, head to startwheel.org/weekly.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Chris?
Professional baseball player.
You still do?
I lost that a long time ago when I stopped growing. You know, I hit 5'7" and just stopped.
How close were you to being at ODU when Verlander was playing or in school?
Very close. So
Justin Verlander went to ODU?
Yeah.
I didn't know
and he
that.
went to Goochland High School, which is down the road from where I grew up. Very close. So he was a senior when I was a freshman. So I was there freshman year when he was still playing.
Cool.
So yeah, he God, what a.
Does he ever do anything? Come back to ODU or recognize that he's?
You know, so I've not necessarily seen it, which doesn't mean anything at all. You know.
Sure.
I'm way more of a, even though he went to ODU, I'm an Atlanta Braves dude because I grew up in Richmond. We had the Richmond Braves. So, but yeah, you know, I don't think he's
not like David Wright, at least. David Wright.
Thank you. I was getting ready
right?
to, yeah. He's no David Wright, but again, David.
Or the Upton brothers are from here. Is that true?
Yep, BJ, and then they went out. I think Greenbrier Christian. I don't know how much. I just David Wright. He used to come into the restaurant, so that's kind of maybe why. And I am no Mets fan by any means, but
I mean, who is?
Maybe because I saw him more because I waited on him. You know, I feel that way. But I mean, he's definitely, you know, Camp Chancellor football. He's got, you know, Cam Cares Foundation, and you know, so he's come back and done a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I don't really hear, you know, other than being with Kate Upton, you know, you don't really hear much about Verlander anymore. I don't think, you know, I think he's, you know, old news these days until he wins another World Series.
Houston, I guess now.
I think so. Yeah, he went from Detroit to where I want to say he threw a no-hitter and World Series. Like,
was he really good at ODU?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I know ODU always had a pretty decent baseball team. I know our girls soccer was pretty awesome. Our girls basketball was phenomenal. Men's basketball, we made it to we made it to the tournament my freshman year. Michigan State knocked us out, I think.
Wow.
Did we make it to the 64? I'm not sure. But yeah, no, so it was, when I came in as a freshman, we had some solid sports going, you know, and they promised us we'd have football by 08, which did not happen. It was 09, but still, we've got it. And, you know, it's nice to be able to, you know, people, you know, so my next door neighbor best friend went to West Virginia University, and, you know, he knew ODU because I went there. But when you started seeing ODU in the games, and it was like, ODU, where is that? Come on, man, rep my city, bro.
WVU, great place. So he went second over. So like little things about celebrating champion and things like this, like maybe I knew that Justin Verlander went there, but like he was the second overall pick in 04 to the Detroit Tigers, right? Like I feel like oftentimes we don't think of the positive things about an area. We think of the negative things, right? And I don't know that Justin Verlander has the biggest name recognition, right? Of like a Michael Vick and things like that. But like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we just don't celebrate the way that are necessary. Or if I was running this area, I would celebrate things a lot more. Is kind of how I would look at it.
What we call our young Jamie, Gavin behind the scenes, shared that he is the all-time strikeout king at ODU and the CAA and the Commonwealth of Virginia, with 427 strikeouts and 335 innings.
It's the CAA,
you know, maybe in Goochland, they may in Goochland have Justin Verlander Day. I'm not sure, but you know I believe he went to Goochland High School, if I'm not mistaken. So they may have.
But I mean, we don't even have military we celebrate the military day here, right? So again,
maybe you celebrate that he's married to Kate Upton. I mean, that's worth something, I would think.
Y'all are a mess.
But yeah, the military one's a good one. I mean, I know we do, you know, NATO headquarters, and we do a lot of stuff. But you're right on Memorial Day, and we do certain things. But it would, yeah, you know, when you look at, I don't know, this isn't the day, but you know, it used to get celebrated a lot, you know, and parades and Yeah.
To your point, Zach, though, I think that someone like Chris in the community is a great thing. I mean, all of us are playing the long game. And so it takes the business community to play the long game, whereas local government, they can't necessarily play the long game. They have to play the short game because they have budget cycles. They have elected officials that are being reported to. So they're forced to play the short game. And to make we're a battleship that it takes the long game to make some change.
And you hit it, especially because we have a one-term governor. Everything in the government takes forever. To think that you can do anything in 4 years, let's get real. Not happening.
But a battleship takes 10 years to build. An aircraft carrier takes 10 years to build.
I'm talking about turn. Yeah, but it takes a long time. It takes the business community with the long-term vision to make the change.
I mean, I haven't even been doing this for 10 years yet, I feel like. That's hard to believe.
That is hard.
Well, and when you think about and look at the companies in Hatch back in the day, I mean, those companies are now they're now just starting to hit their stride. And think about how long ago people gave up on the idea of a Hatch.
They wanted it like that, right? Well, you brought up Pixar. I think she won the last Start Norfolk we did for ASAP Technologies.
ASAP Technologies. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that was a product under is the bench and stuff like that. But it has to be a long game. I mean,
the shortest game that it can be is 6 to 7 years. I mean, that would be the shortest to have a decent size exit or to go.
What's
have
the
an
biggest
IPO.
company that Jason Calacanis? So you're friends with Jason Calacanis. You brought him to, maybe you're not friends, but I'm going to use that word. So you're friends with Jason Calacanis. You brought him to Start Peninsula. What's the biggest company that doesn't have kind of brand recognition yet that he has been a part of? Calm? Is that
I think Calm is probably, and they're valued, I think last I read was that they're at $2 billion.
So I think there's household name companies, and I think it's very difficult to become a household name. But then there's kind of companies that are getting there. I remember one time people were like, no companies ever start here or something like that. And I was like, 2 companies started here 15 years ago and just were sold for billions of dollars. Smithfield and Ameriprise or something like that, or something around the Optima world, something like that.
I think ABC Building Supplies from here. She's one of the richest women in the United States right here.
I think Mars in Virginia.
Mars, yep.
Right?
Virginia
It's
Beach,
little
yep.
things like that. It's just
AMS.
How much is the bowling?
Bowling?
Dude is worth a ton of money. The guy that owns
little things like that. If we could celebrate,
Richmond.
That's fine. But I think looking at other examples is a great thing, and I think that's something that would help if we were to celebrate those things in a way that most were negative. Because I think the story with Smithfield and the medical company that I can't think of, was it Ameriprise?
There's EO Services
maybe?
does one.
Something like that.
One of them was sold for billions of dollars to Optima, is basically what I was talking about. And so the articles in the newspaper were negative, like, oh my God, this company is leaving the area, or this company, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hold on. Think about how much success that they've seen over the years. That's something that we need to be celebrating, not.
Yeah, and at the same time, to your point, though, we got to keep things easy. We want to have to make it that companies want to stay. And when you have a Norfolk Southern that just slips away, I mean, that's in the tough.
Damn name. I mean, how do you lose the name?
Don't get me started on that one. That was right in. I had a lot to say about that one.
I haven't even talked about these things in a long time, so it's interesting to
do. But that one's tough. Our name is in it, but until we, you're not going to compete with Atlanta. When you've got a company that needs to go global, they have the largest airport. They're international. Our Norfolk International. We've tried to build extra runways, and they're getting shut down.
They're landlocked.
Yeah, but there's plenty of places that are landlocked that don't seem to have that problem. And so that was always my pushback.
And that's where their massive headquarters was in Atlanta anyway. It was only a matter of time. The saving that they did and the amount of money that they put forward, when I told them they were going to leave in 5 years, and I was wrong. They left in 2. But
people mishear what we're saying too as oh, we're just complaining about these things. I don't think that's true. I think we want to see this area succeed, and we're
100%.
bringing up ideas, and they don't like that we're bringing up these ideas because they're the actual truth, and people don't like to hear. Liza was right. The truth hurts. Can't believe I just dropped that. That's ridiculous.
Boom.
But I mean, that's it. It's like the truth hurts sometimes, right?
They're all children, council people, all of them. You know, if you make them think it was their idea, then it's a good idea. But if you come up with it, it's a bad idea.
Here's something for people listening to think about. What would the pitch be if you went on Shark Tank for this area? And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Oh God.
Well, I think Chris has already touched on a lot of it that I think that we need to be reminded. I mean, you got the beach, you've got the mountains, you've got DC, you have Richmond, and if you want to live in the suburbs, downtown, on the oceanfront, you have, or in the country, you can do all that right here. Where else can you do that?
Access to a lot of things.
Yeah, with geographic location and just logistically center.
And you have 4 seasons that the winters are harsh.
3.5.
Exactly. You might get all 4 seasons in 1 week, but we got them.
That's right.
All right. Chris, it's been an absolute delight catching up with you.
Thanks,
Tim,
guys.
always great to see you.
Yeah, that's fun.
Peace, y'all. And waffles if you want.
Peace, love, and waffles.
No, just peace and pancakes.